My guest today is Carter Razink. Carter is the co-founder at Spree Finance, building the future of commerce and credit. We'll learn all about this today. Welcome to the show, Carter.
Hey, good to be here.
Good to have you here, Carter. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. It'd be super cool if you could please introduce yourself. Love really just to hear some of your personal and professional backstory. Yeah, what have you been doing in the lead up to co-founding Spree Finance?
Yeah. So my name's Carter Razink. Thanks for the intro. It was great. I kind of have a maybe not a normal startup story. I went to university for physics and mathematics and taught myself how to code in the process. I became full stack and I was doing National Science Foundation research in computational astrophysics, and I was totally sold that I was going to get a doctorate and go to Germany or Switzerland and go to research at the particle accelerators there. And during COVID, it kind of gave me the chance to reflect that I have a pretty serious addiction to starting companies. And it's not something that I was really able to shake off. And so during kind of the early stages of me doing research, I kind of got into this world of crypto when I was gifted Dogecoin. I kind of was like, this is really insane internet money with a dog on it that has a crazy like actual real value. I got into mining, and then I kind of realized you could build real products on it. And so I have been either co-founding or helping advise and consult on different projects in the space. And I met some of the people at a Superlogic, which is a kind of a loyalty based Web2 company, and now we're spinning out and building Spree, which is trying to address the real problems that we've had while building some of this infrastructure for bigger Web2 companies. We realized that Web3 has some of these answers, so I'm really excited to kind of explore during this conversation, but more broadly in the space of building a startup, what it means to build decentralized commerce and how I think it can really solve a lot of problems that conventional Web2 companies face, even though they're pretty scared of it. We're rife with scams and scariness, but I don't think it needs to be that way.
Yeah, very well said. All right, well, Carter, be good then to start to learn a little bit about, I suppose, what the vision for Spree Finance is, how you guys kind of define it at a high level. You can kind of look at it as like decentralized travel or decentralized commerce. Loyalty, all these aspects are certainly play a part, but yeah, how would you describe Spree Finance?
Yeah, so I think you hit it on the head. The way we like to think about it is when you go back to 2009 and the white paper of Bitcoin, the primary idea was we go into this world of peer-to-peer commerce. Bitcoin and ETH and these blue chip assets and not blue chip assets, even meme coins, are almost too good at their job, accidentally even sometimes. And what we see is people normally don't want to spend Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana because they believe it's going to be more valuable in the future than it is now. And so speculation that assets are going to become more valuable in the future prevent commerce from occurring. And so really Spree is just trying to address this problem. We're trying to bring real world utility of commerce to decentralized assets. We kind of call it decentralized commerce, right? Or commerce DeFi, where we're trying to bring this crypto liquidity, almost $4 trillion of crypto liquidity to merchants, to real world commerce participants. And, there's this big problem. And some people in law and politics have identified this most recently with the, it's CCCA, Credit Card Competition Act, I think. There are people trying to disrupt the existing payments monopoly or duopoly, right? You have MasterCard and you have Visa, and you basically have them only. Right? If you were to go to a mom and pop coffee shop and spend $5 on a cup of coffee, you were paying something around the lines, depending on what processor they use, about 7.5%, 8% in fees. And that is not paid by you. I mean, of course, you pay taxes, but that's paid by the coffee shop. And they are being really put in a tough spot because not only do they have to pay their employees, They have to buy the inventory. Some of it goes bad, but they also have to juggle these crazy processor fees that eat straight into their margin. And a lot of companies have to deal with this really thin margins that, hey, what would be a great service or solution for that? Digital assets, specifically stable coins that have super low processing fees, settle in a fraction of the time. And really broadly, stable coins have these massive tailwinds. If I was to kind of take a step back for a moment, there are really three assets in the digital asset space that I feel have had clear product market fit. That is Bitcoin, digital gold, neutral money. That's a pretty coherent narrative. Programmable money in the form of Ethereum or Solana, and then stablecoins. And case in point, Stripe just acquired Bridge for $1.1 billion recently. And so I think Stripe is ahead of the curve, and they see the writing on the wall, and they recognize that stables are going to disrupt basically all forms of payments, and payments broadly is being commoditized. And so Spree is addressing the opportunity we have by connecting our relationships in e-commerce with over 2 million merchants to the world of decentralized finance and stable coins. And we're trying to create value by essentially doing something that other people do, but they do it at 100 times more expensive. We're basically going to eat the lunch of most of the existing payment processing companies.
Yeah, fascinating and very well explained, Carter. And I think you're exactly right in terms of some of those narratives you pointed out. Bitcoin obviously is fairly well settled, primarily as digital gold at this point. DeFi, but yeah, I think the stablecoin narrative that you've identified is particularly interesting this year, mainly, of course, because of what's going on with the new Trump administration.
Right.
David Sachs, the crypto czar, I'm sure maybe you saw his press conference the other week. It was fascinating watching that, Carter, because everyone was kind of thinking, oh, yeah, David Sachs is going to come out and he's going to announce the strategic Bitcoin reserve.
I was hoping a little bit.
Look, so was I. I was hoping too, but it's just a little bit too soon for that kind of, it has to go through all the hoops and so on. But I think, yeah, they've made it very clear that they are going to focus on, making stablecoins an integral part of the US financial system, and essentially use stablecoins to prop up the US dollar or to make sure that the US dollar maintains its dollar reserve status. So look, I don't want to get too distracted here, Carter, but I think what you guys are doing. So you're talking about using stablecoins. If anyone holds any kind of assets like you talked about before, Dogecoin, Solana, whatever, and they want to perhaps access the liquidity of those assets, you kind of doing the back end swaps and whatever is necessary. So people just use Spree, they can buy what they want with whatever asset they want, and you're gonna take care of that on stablecoin rails. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And I think everything you just said leading up to this is 100% accurate, right? It's not as sexy to think like, stables are going to be the future and because you can't make money off of them because a speculation isn't really a thing. If I buy a stable expecting it to go up in price or down in price, that's a massive red flag with the stable. Right. That is whenever you mention stables in a Web3 context, people just eyes glaze over. It's like, can I make money? No. All right. I'm not going to even comprehend what you're saying. But it really is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity in my mind, especially when you think about how all of these coins are going to need to be backed by US debt. That's a great thing for the government to want. In fact, I believe it's one of the only things the government currently has in its sort of tool belt to fight this runaway debt situation. But to kind of get to your point, that is exactly right. And I think, we talk about some of the existing incumbents in payments. There's a lot of systems out there that allow you to spend crypto, but oftentimes they're very restrictive on what they accept, even though the infrastructure is out there to settle into the currencies that most of the time fiat that these merchants need. And so when we talk to merchants that are, looking at using Spree's infrastructure for settling, whatever currency, some meme coin on Solana into fiat, they don't care what currency you pay with. It's being converted into US dollars and settled with the merchant immediately using Spree's infrastructure. And so we kind of have this internal medium of exchange. It's called a Spree Points, which is kind of like a US dollar backed loyalty token that most of the time we think about that commerce experience. You go to a store, you spend your credit card and you get loyalty points back. We are allowing you to not only get commerce rewards back in the form of our native medium of exchange, but also the payments are being settled into this token so that our merchant partners can get paid in cash too.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So because and it says it's very clear on your website. You talk about the Spree Points, stable points token backed by USD stable coins, which is redeemable at millions of merchants apparently. So that's obviously a fantastic incentive. There's a Spree token as well. So just anything that we need to understand about the Spree token and I guess how that Spree Points system works, Carter.
Yeah. So the Spree Points approach is kind of like the first behemoth you have to tackle because if you're trying to build a commerce system, it's fun to think about a price fluctuating asset, and that's it tends to be a funnel for attention. But really, when we're talking to real merchant partners in the Web 2 world, that's actually kind of a thing they don't want to hear. They don't want to hear anything about volatility. They want to hear fiat. They want to hear cash. I want to get paid, and nothing surprising could happen. And so the Spree Points infrastructure is sort of this to start, at least with our current stage, a closed loop ecosystem where we allow for Spree Points to be settled with merchants in a way that doesn't threaten their business with exposure to the outside world. And so it's almost like a buffer between the craziness that goes on in the trenches of the degenerate casino that we all live in every day, and the real world of commerce. And honestly, it's kind of a non-negotiable. You can't convince large institutional partners to join crypto to get the benefits of the $4 trillion worth of assets in this space without saying, hey, this is the system we're using and here's how we're going to protect the money you've made. And then there is another component that's a little bit more DeFi or crypto native, and that's the Spree token. And, I guess there's a couple of things you could say about that, but in essence, it's sort of our protocol token. And so there's a Spree network that goes into play. We have node operators that provide infrastructure to our merchant partners, and that token it plays a role in facilitating those services.
Got it. Thank you, Carter. I want to bring it back to, the travel side of things, because that's quite interesting. It's particularly with, the younger generations, it's much more common for everyone just to, the world has opened up, particularly after COVID, I guess.
Yeah.
And, it's weird to say travel is hot, but, people love to travel and it's never been more accessible. So it makes sense that, anyone that can kind of tap into that I guess crypto native or Web3 community that maybe has, like we were talking about before, they might have some disposable income, they've got some assets saved up, and they're ready just to maybe they're digital nomads or they just want to go on holidays, whatever. Yeah. How does Spree fit into that lifestyle?
Yeah, the way that I like to think about this is we have a partner, and the partner we're announcing it here soon. I'm not sure when this will go out, but around ETH Denver time. And this partner has like really deep exposure into the Web 2 world. And so one of the big problems that they have is, when you pay with credit card, that whole process is rife with chargebacks and their fees for the transactions are really high. And so we're working with our partner that services, all the flights, all the hotels, basically everything you would need for travel. And kind of is a really interesting, mutually beneficial situation where we have a specific niche of commerce that we feel we can dominate in this sort of travel ecosystem. And it also happens to fit really well with the Web3 ecosystem generally, where I just went to Token 2049, and I went to we're going to ETH Denver in Colorado, and so you got to fly there. And a lot of people that I meet and I work with are like you said, digital nomads, and so we're trying to address this problem of everybody in the ecosystem flies, they travel, they do all these things. And there's this clear opportunity with our partner to decrease the overall cost of procuring the US dollars for a transaction, and then working with the partners to deliver those dollars. And so the idea here is that we can deliver generally market rate or better prices through our Spree Points merchant to consumer rewards. So you'll see, you go on Google or you look up a flight or a hotel, there's a really good chance that our partner is going to be able to match those prices and then maybe even give you a better price, because we are not having to worry about much of the costs that would normally be incurred through the payment process.
Yeah. What about, there's a lot of different platforms, right? Particularly in travel. So I know there's platforms like Travella. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Travella,
how would you,
yeah.
If you look at platforms like that and the countless other ones, how do you kind of, differentiate yourself and offer different products and services that make your offering more compelling?
Yeah. So one of the big ideas here is, so the partner I've been referencing, I think I can probably mention it at this point. It's called Bookit, and Bookit is being pushed out in a couple unique kind of differentiation points. I think about most Web3 payment systems out there, and I think the primary differentiation is catering to a Web3 native audience. So when you go to a DEX, you go to a Uniswap or a Jupiter, you use your wallet as a primary means of identification. You sign a transaction to execute something on chain. Bookit and Spree are combining forces to ensure that this experience iteratively will become more and more Web3 native. And so I think that's the first thing. Travella is, I believe that everyone in the industry pushing crypto it's broadly a good thing for the ecosystem, but I think that there are pain points in the experience that need to be improved. And so Bookit's improving them. One of the big ones is payment, right? I could try to scan a QR code and hopefully I didn't mess up in copying and pasting the address and all that fun stuff. Bookit's checkout with Spree is connect a wallet, sign a transaction. It's like 1-2 steps. So that user experience is really, super streamlined. And for the merchant, they're getting US dollars settled immediately. And that's and sort of a really kind of differentiating point is they're plugging right into our commerce DeFi infrastructure. And so that means that consumers are getting exposure to different forms of payment. For example, a system that we're toying with is this idea of consumer credit, where you can collateralize your blue chip assets and access a line of credit to spend directly with Bookit, as if it was almost like an on-chain credit card. And so that's not something you can do basically with any other infrastructure. And because they're a part of the Spree ecosystem, they're getting the benefits of the sort of ecosystem of DeFi and other merchants and existing liquidity to really supercharge that commerce checkout experience.
Awesome. Sounds amazing, Ekata. Look, it's interesting times, and I guess Web3. One of the challenges, though, is, you've kind of talked about, being in the trenches and the, I guess the peer versus peer, no holds barred trench warfare that takes place for those who are brave enough to enter the meme coin trading games. And man, that is a competitive environment these days. It's almost kind of a shame the way that because everyone wants new entrants to come into Web3, right? But sometimes if they come in and they get just super burnt super quickly on a meme coin, a lot of people, they get a bad taste and they aren't necessarily going to stick around. It's not like the kind of the halcyon days of 2021 when everyone was high on the wonderful world of NFTs and it was cool because there was art and community, and it's a little bit more cutthroat now. And But to be fair, most people are just better off sitting in Bitcoin and
Absolutely.
leaving it alone, right? So I guess if that's the context, how it's kind of a wider conversation from what you're doing, but it's all kind of intertwined. How do we keep people coming into Web3 and make sure they have a good experience? Is it through using platforms such as yours rather than the kind of the eat its young world of crypto trading?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I am of the opinion, so I kind of imagine the current situation is like you have a super small pie, and this is Web3, and we're fighting over this really small slice. And then you have this like gigantic pie over here, and this is like all of traditional finance. And so like the true 100x or 1000x is not fighting over a couple billion here and there. It's fighting over the tens of trillions over here. And so one of I think about like what is the next step process that we're going to see? What are we at? A couple 100 million wallets. What is it going to take to get to 1 billion wallets? Like truly, that's the way we need to think about it. And if you actually look at Facebook's adoption curve, that is really fascinating. They kind of were like flat. Maybe they have a few million. And then they went to like 50 million, and then they flattened out. And that flattened out was like, oh, we went mobile. And then they went to like 500 million, and then they flattened out. And that was something, I don't know. I think it was maybe like games, or I don't remember exactly it is. But then that last big step that allowed them to get from 500 to like 5 billion, that 10x, was translation and going to multiple languages. And that makes sense looking backwards. But now we need to think about how can we get 10x more going forward? And I think that, the CEO of Stripe, Patrick, said something fascinating. He says, stable coins are the room temperature superconductors for financial services. And that's a really interesting analogy to think about, what if we had this, I mean, in the physics context, this makes a lot of sense and it's like compelling. You could build incredible technology with a room temperature superconductor. I remember the craze back in I forget how long, almost a year or maybe even a little less. It was like, oh, is your LK99, it's the future. But we now have this actual real technology in stables. And I believe that the next step to get the next 100, 500 million people is by wrapping existing payment infrastructure, using stables to save 90+% on transaction settlement, and giving a significantly 10x or 100x better user experience to customers to where they don't even know they're using stables. They're just doing what they did before. And we talk about that often. We talk about we need to abstract the wallet process. What if they don't want to know what a wallet is even? Like we imply, like I come to OpenSea, we need to abstract the wallet process. 99% of the population doesn't know or care about NFTs. So they're never going to come to OpenSea in the first place. And that's like a non sequitur. We're not going to get 5 billion people on Web3 if we're targeting NFTs for art, at least now. Maybe in the future that'll change, and I'm all for it. But I think that we need to be offering a 10x better service to an existing incumbent population. And if we can do that well, which stablecoins already enable, by offering a superior user experience, superior fees, better rewards. We've seen Web2 companies do this already. Spree is just positioning itself right now to be the infrastructure layer for when payments get commoditized. And we may not even own that layer. Likely, we probably won't. We're probably going to sell it as a service to other organizations and other services, other startups. And so that is that experience that's going to be onboarding, truly the future.
Yeah, fascinating, Carter. And look, you're exactly right, of course, of the idea of user experience, right? And look, this has been crypto's number one problem since the number one days of crypto. The UI sucks, of course, but it's fascinating. One of the and look, Web2 is all about UI UX, but it's fascinating even looking at the likes of OpenAI, right, with ChatGPT, which is one of the the more popular or more successful, fastest growing internet applications, or whatever you want to call it, websites. But yeah, that is a website. But yeah, it's the way that they talk about, the model selector. They want to get rid of the model selector, even though I think the UI on ChatGPT is very good.
Like
and that's why it's the leading. That's why it's the leading AI. But they recognize itself that the best UI is no UI, and that's when you can just talk to it. And I think that's where we're headed.
That's fascinating.
How do you kind of compete with that? If is that where we're heading?
That's a really fascinating question. I totally agree with the idea. I think I've said this to colleagues and friends. I think that AI is sort of fundamentally changing the user experience layer of everything, the internet broadly, but like also hardware too. Like that's how I'm going to interface with the future of basically everything. I mean, Uber is fascinating because I go on the app and I type my address, it comes to me. But Uber did a really fascinating user experience. They went on the app, you press a button, and then a physical car comes to you, and that was so groundbreaking at the time, and it still kind of blows my mind sometimes. But then I think about the next step, and I think about AI in how it's disrupting the process by which businesses are built. I believe that the businesses of the future either need to go in one of two directions. They need to either fully embrace AI and use AI in every turn to outcompete and outproduce their competitors and get to market faster, get the differentiation through this moat of some form. They need to be like basically competing with everyone because everyone has access to it. Or you need to go the flip side and you need to do straight bare metal, almost hardware level work, because AI can't yet compete with that. And so I almost view Spree's business model and Spree's go-to-market in two forms. The first form is like, hey, we want to offer infrastructure for commerce, for agentic commerce. We actually have something really interesting in the works. If you come to Eat Denver, we'll have a booth. You should check it out. There may be a demo to see. But it's this idea of agents can't necessarily just use like a bank account or a credit card or a social security number. Those are built for humans. And that is not supposed to be used by robots. Actually, it is intentionally built in a way that prevents people that aren't human from doing it. And so what's the next natural extension of that in my mind is, well, how are they going to own money and how are they going to do commerce if they can't get a bank account or they can't get a credit card? It's a wallet. And so wallets serve as that natural intermediary layer between agents and the real world. And so that's fascinating. We are building infrastructure for businesses that are doing that right now. But on the flip side, it's also how do we build commerce infrastructure that doesn't matter who uses it, it's going to be economically sound. And that's the Spree network. And that is without going down the rabbit hole because we don't have enough time, it's a system that is almost a decentralized alternative to credit card companies, to credit card processing rails. And that is not something that I think is going to be threatened by AI. It's actually going to be a utility for AI by building infrastructure as a service for other companies and even other agents. Maybe they'll use it on their own. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I like that, Carter. Look, as we start to finish up this part of the podcast, then, love you just to explain, I guess, where Spree Finance is at the moment. Who is able to come and sign up? Do they have to be Americans, Canadians, anywhere else in the world where it's also available? Anything that you are willing to share in terms of, I don't know, what's coming down the product pipeline, any new partnerships in the tank, and of course, anything you want to tease about East Denver. Yeah, just take it away. Keep us up to date. So yeah,
totally.
Take it away.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no. So yeah, I think I mentioned Book It. I think timing wise, we're flying to go live with it in this interview because like within the next week we're going to be announcing it. So it'll be good timing, I think. So yeah, Book It's coming out. We're that's sort of the infrastructure partner, that sort of merchant aggregator partner for Spree, and they're the relationship that allows Spree to provide this crypto infrastructure for the 2 million merchants. We also have sort of an internal real service product experience, a web app called MyTap Rewards. Both of these products allow you to spend crypto on real world experiences and experience, basically just super smoothly connect a wallet, buy something. It's about as Web3 native as you can imagine. MyTap Rewards is out there right now, mytaprewards.com. So you can kind of get a feel for currently where we're at on that end. I think it's early, but we have a lot of really interesting stuff in the pipeline. One of the interesting ideas we're talking about is consumer credit. I mentioned this earlier, where an individual who doesn't want to sell their ETH or their SOL or their Bitcoin can collateralize it and use it as a line of credit through sort of a Morpho or an Aave style approach that probably some listeners are familiar with. It's adjacent to this. We're working with a few dApp partners to enable them to leverage a similar system where they can lend their token out to a vault, a lending protocol, and not liquidate their assets, but also facilitate incentives. And these incentives directly plug into this 2 million merchant ecosystem. So where now you have real world experiences, real world commerce that you can give back to your community without needing to sell and dump tokens on your community. And I think this is fascinating as someone who I've been in this position before. I'm like, I have all these tokens. I can't sell them, but I can't airdrop them either, because then they're just going to get sold. And like, what do you do? And so we're building infrastructure for dApps to try to plug into this experience. It's like sort of a distribution mechanism as well. So if you're a dApp, check us out on at Spree Finance on Twitter or spree.finance, our website. Kind of the last thing we're really excited to talk about is merchant factoring. And so this idea of using on-chain DeFi to facilitate really access liquidity through a traditional finance system. Factoring is a really tried and true Web 2 system where they basically facilitate accounts receivable settlement into dollars, but we do it at a fraction of the price, and we're doing it for all of our merchant partners. And so we're rolling out some beta tests. If any of this stuff piques your interest, please reach out. And there's many more things in the pipeline, but I think those are the really exciting ones in the near term that I'd love to get feedback on and try to find partners with. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Carter. And of course, the website, guys, spree.finance is the website. But Carter, it is time to begin to finish off the show. And of course, we do that by running you through the very famous crypto conversation hot take round. Are you up for it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, Carter. I'm just going to run some questions at you, and I just want you to give me your honest answers, hot take style, if you like. Question 1 for you, Carter, is where would you say that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
Oh, man. Can you do both? I know it's almost oxymoron. But no, I think most value, 99% of value created in crypto will funnel to Bitcoin, but app chains will dominate because they, for example, Uniswap built Unichain because half of their profits were taken by ETH. And so I think in the long run, we're going to have a multi-chain future, but most people are going to use Bitcoin to store their value.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think that's the correct
Maybe
answer.
Not super hot. I don't know. It needs to be a hot take, I guess.
That's all right. Carter, next question for you is, what would you say is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
My firmest conviction. Oh man. I'm how hot do I want to go, I guess. I think Monero is crazy undervalued.
Wow.
Like 1000x undervalued. Maybe not 1000, but like long term, I think it's got a ways to go.
Yeah, that is a hot take. I used to like Monero. I used to kind of, but it's been a while since you don't see people talk about Monero on crypto Twitter.
Not often. Maybe that's actually a good thing. Let's get it. Let's just let the market do its thing, and it'll eventually find its place.
I think that makes sense actually, because one of the core tenets really of crypto is that anonymous payment side. Everyone seems to forget that, but yeah.
Long run, I think. Like I'm a fan of the Sovereign Individual book.
Yes.
If you've read that totally changed my perspective. I think it's just like a natural conclusion to some of the axioms posited in that book. I mean, you can disagree with it. You can think it's a bad idea, but like, I think some of them are true. And so what does that mean? If I'm an investing man, which is a betting man, I think that's a good place to long run position at least a part of your portfolio.
Yeah, look, I can't argue with that. I agree with it. And I think there's a place and a need for people to do things with their money that are entirely the choice of that individual, and it shouldn't be easy for any other individual, the state, the government, IRS, or whatever, just to be able to see what they're doing.
Yeah, well said.
All right, let's keep it moving, Carter.
Yes,
Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. Of course, in crypto years, 10 years, it's a very long time indeed. But, cast your mind forward. Anything you like, crypto, spree finance, Bitcoin, XMR, what does it all look like in 10 years' time, Carter?
Oh, man. 10 years, everyone and their grandmother is using crypto. They likely don't know it. I think speculation is it's going to not mean what it means now. I think we're going to see an explosion of speculative, but not perceived as speculative, financialization of everything. Probably in the next 10 years, accelerated if we see any level of inflation. And likely, I think Bitcoin becomes a lot more normalized. I say Bitcoin even around my TradFi friends, and they're like, no, no, can't do that. Now ETF is normalizing it. I think everybody will have some amount of exposure.
Yep, I do too. All right, William Gibson famously said, Carter, that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
I mean, AI is an immediate thought. I talk to my friends all the time, and I'm like, are you using AI? And they don't know what I'm talking about. Or they do, but they use it for kind of not very useful means, kind of more novel means. I think that is one of the more clear examples. So I build prototypes for my engineers to look at. And even I use it more than them sometimes. I think that AI totally destroys the concept of labor markets in a way that I don't think even I understand yet. And so fast forward, I kind of go back to your question, 10 years, I don't think that the implications of a labor market that allows me to hire 1,000 engineers for $100 a week is fully understood. And those who do understand that concept and those who embrace this technology before will get a disproportionate percentage of that unequally distributed future. And I think crypto is uniquely positioned to allow for individuals to take advantage of that, especially with agents using blockchain and crypto as the payments.
I love it. Couldn't agree more. All right. Well, I think that is almost it, Carter. So we have one more question. The final question for you is, of course, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Oh man. I think I got to go with Dune. That was a really, I read it long before the movie, for what it's worth. I'm just a huge fan of the lore behind it. Yeah, I think Dune's probably going to be my answer. Yeah. And maybe not exciting, but it's a really good one.
Yeah, but look, you can't go wrong with Dune. The second film, incredible.
Oh, very good. I was impressed how accurate they depicted it. In a, you kind of don't go in expecting it to be, as good as you read, but it was pretty close.
I concur. Thank you, Carter. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking with you today. Great to meet you. Great to have you on the show. Look, just to close it out again, just tell people where they can go to keep up with all things Spree Finance, and look, share your X profile wherever else you like to hang out online. Yeah, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. This was great. It was a really good time. Hopefully we can do it again sometime soon. You can find me on X at CRAZINK, Crazink, and Spree Finance at Spree Finance and Spree.finance, for anything Spree related. Check us out. We're staying on top of things. We're going to be rolling out a lot of alpha here in the next couple weeks, month or so. So, I'd love to engage with anyone who's interested in what it means to decentralize commerce. Maybe hit me up if you've read The Sovereign Individual and talk philosophy or something.
I love it. Thank you so much, Carter. All the best.
Cheers.
And bye for now.
Thank you.